Welcome to MREA Book Club Mastermind session number 6. Today we're going over the MREA economic model, pages 172 to 184. Now, before you start clicking off of this video because you don't like economics, I promise you, you will like this video and this section because this video is one of the ways that you can ensure you're a profitable business and it's not a hobby. Now, Jake, before we get started, I heard this and I've heard a long time and I've shared this at trainings across the country. What's the difference between a real estate agent and an Uber driver, Jake?
Ooh, this should be good. Uber driver probably actually has a job.
The Uber driver actually gets paid for driving people around. That's the difference between an Uber driver and a real estate agent, right? So today what we're talking about is your income, your pay, not just the income of your business, but your income, your net income, what you get to take to the bank. That's the income we're talking about today. Right. And that's the reason you're going to like this section, I promise you, because it has everything to do with your income. Now, today we're going over, as you can see on the screen, pages 172 through 184. So I'm going to ensure that everything here is working while I'm doing that. I'd like you guys to pull out your MREA book, flip to page 172, have a highlighter, have a pen, and Coach Jake and I are going to walk through this section with you step by step. Now, what also may be handy for today's session is if you have some scratch paper or a notepad or something you could take some notes on. Because you're going to have all the examples in the book, and we're going to take our time, and I promise you, even if you don't speak this language, you will by the end of this call. However, it will be helpful probably to have a piece of paper to draw out some of this stuff and take some additional notes if you choose not to do that inside of your book. So, without further ado, let's get going. Now, here's what we know. What we know is we've already talked about the economic model. We also know that we've talked about all the other models. There are how many models? 4. We have 4 models, and we've talked about the 4. So why in the world does the book go through them again? Well, the reason is now we're looking at them through the lens of the Millionaire Real Estate Agent. Now, hear me clearly again before you check out. When I say that, it doesn't mean you have to want to build a business at that scale or to that level. What I can tell you is, though, the best practices used by those that do can absolutely help you in your business right where you're at and right where you want to stay.
And they say this later on in this chapter. They talk about, try not to get, and we hate that word because try doesn't exist in bold, right? But they say later in the chapter, try not to get overwhelmed by the numbers. They're using it strictly as it's a model, right? You use easy math. So when you do easy math, you always go to $100, even if you're only doing math for $18. So when we're doing math for this $1 million business, understand it's scalable. That's the point of a model in a system. So don't get overwhelmed and just take the models for what they are. Look at what they are. They talk a lot about conversion rates. The economic model is an awesome tool for predicting your income.
Absolutely. And here's the deal. Like we've talked about this in a previous book club video, Jake and I have. When asked most agents, when we ask them, how much do you want to make this year? The answer we most commonly get is $100,000. Now, that doesn't mean they've ever thought through that. There's no meaning to that per se. It's just what Jake's saying. It's the brain trying to do the easy math, and it's just spitting out a number that's even and easy to work with. Okay? So what we're saying here is just look more of how the model and the formulas operate. Don't focus so much on what the actual numbers themselves are because yours will likely be different. All right, page 172. And I got a lot of highlights, so I hope you have your seatbelt on, Jake, because here we go. All right,
I do.
172. Towards the bottom, he says this. Now, let's now study the issues and numbers of becoming a millionaire in real estate sales. Now, if that doesn't interest you, I'm not saying that you're saying, yes, I'm going to do that, or no, I'm not. But if that doesn't right there interest you, then just click off this video. It's probably not for you. And that's okay. We love you anyway. But guys, who doesn't want to build a business that has the potential to make you a millionaire? If you don't, you're in the wrong business. So here's what he's saying. Let's study the issues and the numbers of becoming a millionaire in real estate sales. One of our discoveries while working with and interviewing millionaire real estate agents was the transition between earn $1 million, where the business is earning it, and net $1 million was what? Was quite seamless. Now that's good news. That means when we build our business to the point where it is earning $1 million in gross revenue, it's not a big step to go from that to where we're actually earning $1 million. That's the point. Now he goes on to say on the top of page 173, the same models are effective throughout. Netting $1 million in annual income is more a reflection of mastering your models than pursuing a different path. Now, I want you to write in your margin right there. I want you to underline mastering your models like I did. Page 37. Page 37 of your MREA book. This is what we went through on one of the first calls. Models before creativity. It holds true all the way here to this person building a business that grosses $1 million and then a business that nets $1 million. They're simply following models. They're doing the models before creativity. So when I get asked, okay, so when do I get to be creative? Not until here from what I'm reading. You're still implementing those foundational models. You're still not allowing creativity to creep in. You're still doing the same things, and you're still learning from other people's experience if you want to get a fast and consistent and predictable result. Now, further down that page, he says this, the next paragraph, as we cover these models, you must still remember to maintain your focus, underline focus. You'll still have to maintain your focus on the core issues that will drive your real estate business. What are they?
Leads, listing, and leverage, I think. Isn't
That's
that
right.
What we talked about before?
Page 40, guys. Page 40. Underline the 3 L's. Look at my book. Underline the 3 L's. Page 40 is what he's referencing. So wait, Jake, you mean even when I build a business to this level, I don't get to stop? I don't get to just completely back out and say, cool, peace, guys. Have a good time. Just send me my check. You understand, guys, Gary Keller still goes to KWRI every single day. He is the epitome of a 7th level business owner, and he's still in the office. He's still working on the business. He's not working in it, but he's working on it still. He's never completely removed, and that's his point here. Now, middle of page 173, next paragraph down. And I've got a lot of highlights here. I apologize, sorry, not sorry, but we're going to unpack this because this is the meaty section here, okay? He says, above all, you'll be focused on generating leads. Please, for the love of God, underline that in your book. Above
that's
all.
the business we're in. That is the business we're in. And if I have to say it again, that is the business we're in.
Nothing else matters. Above all, you'll be focused on generating leads. He keeps going. I like to say lead generation comes first, last, and always.
Always.
I'd underline that too if I were you. When do you get to stop lead generating? Never.
Never.
You don't ever get to stop lead generating. Lead generation is your business. It is always your business, and it will be until you go into that little box in the ground. Lead generation is your business. If you want to continue to have a big business and have a strong business, lead generation is your business. It is the one thing you do every day. Never stop.
And if that word creeps you out, change it. Change the word. It's the same business, but change it to relationship generating. If that makes you feel better and warmer and fuzzier about it, change the word. It's the same process.
Great point. Great point. He goes on to say, let's keep reading here. This is the key, guys, and this is going to hit some of you between the eyes, and I'm glad. He says this, it doesn't matter whether his computer crashed or an assistant quit. He systematically, meeting the MREA agent, pursues leads, and when finished, then, underline that word then turns his attention to the problem of the day. Now, how does this show up for most agents? Isn't it, wouldn't you say it's probably backwards for most agents?
It totally is. Everybody,
The MREA starts with the prospecting. The MREA starts with the lead gen. That's the first thing. That's the most important thing. And then, the word then switches the focus to the problems of the day. Most agents come in and deal with the problems of the day first, and then they do lead generation if they get to it. And you guys understand, Gary said for years, Jake, you've heard him say this in Masterminds. He said this for years. You cannot trade tomorrow's business while you're servicing today's. You can't take a trade there because you all know we have this real estate income roller coaster. And the reason for that is exactly what he's talking about here. Instead of doing consistent lead generation, which means our income is consistent, agents do the lead generation, get the deals. They stop because they're working on the problems of today and servicing today's business. Then that business closes, and then what happens, Jake?
Then you have to go find new business and welcome to the bottom to where you have to build up to 90 days from now to where you're back up there.
Yes. I want you to think of it this way, guys, and we've used this to coach agents for a long time. I want you to think of it this way. Think of lead generation as pushing a boulder up a hill. You're pushing a massive boulder up a hill. I'm talking a boulder bigger than Charlie's car, a massive boulder. You're pushing this thing up a hill. And it's taking everything you've got. You are giving it everything you've got. You are leaning so hard into this rock that your face is almost touching the ground. And you keep trying and you keep pushing. And you don't stop. You do it every day. And finally, you get to the rock to the top of the hill. Now, what do most agents do with that proverbial rock, Jake?
They let go of it.
And it rolls right back down to the bottom of the hill. And what do they have to start the next day?
Yep, you got to start from the very bottom, going all the way back up.
Now, we all hear that and we think,
foot off the gas.
Yes, we all hear that and we think, oh, that's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. So are you, because you're guilty of it. So am I.
Yep.
Don't let the rock go. You cannot stop. Once you have the momentum, keep pushing, because a little bit of lead generation every day keeps that rock right up on top of that hill. And the day that you stop, it starts rolling backwards. And then you have to start this process all over again. And that's why people have really good months and then they're broke for 4 months. And then they have another really couple good months. And if they would just consistently do the activities that got them to business in the first place, they wouldn't have anything to worry about. Money would not be the concern. But you understand, all of this hinges on that. Even at the Millionaire Real Estate Agent level, he's talking about, he comes in and he does the lead generation, then, underline the word then he turns his attention to the problem of the days. Rob says amen. Yes, Rob, amen to that, brother. Don't let the rock go to the bottom of the hill, all right?
Yeah.
We'll preach more on that in a second, but just trust me, that's an important part of this model. It's an important part of this book, and it's definitely a part of Gary's passion, okay? Now he goes on, he says he knows that if he allows himself to be distracted from his core job, underline core job, from his core job, he'll always be lagging behind and exposing himself to varieties of shifting markets. You understand that when you do consistent lead generation in your business, what the market's doing up or down is really irrelevant to you.
That's how you shift-proof yourself. We've all heard that word, and some of you are like, well, I don't know what that means. Your consistency in the activity of relationship or lead generating is what shift-proofs your business and creates predictable income.
Absolutely. No, one sentence below that. Let's keep going. This is perfect. The truth is that the opportunities you have to build your business begin or end with the number of leads you have. I want you to circle that sentence, because if there's one sentence that you take from this book, if there's one sentence that you meditate on after we're done on this call, I really hope that's at least one of them, if not the one. Let's read it one more time. The truth is the opportunities you have to build your business begin or end, good or bad. You earn your outcome either way. I want you to write that in the margins. You earn your outcome here either way. Your activities earn your outcome. It's no one else's fault. It's not the market's fault. It's not your office's fault. It's not your brokerage's fault. It's not the brand's fault. It's your fault. You earn your outcome either way. So they begin or end with the number of leads you have. After lead generation, you'll focus on listings. So it starts with how many leads do we have. Until we have enough leads, nothing else matters. There is no other problem in your business bigger than having leads. So if you don't have enough, everything else is on hold. Unless somebody is bleeding or burning, everything else is on hold. Nothing else matters until you have enough leads. Then once we have that rock being pushed up the hill, we have momentum there, we have consistency built into our business there, then and only then do we shift our focus. He says the second thing, which is on listings, because it's the highest form or the highest leverage form of our business. And we'll talk more about that. Now, towards the bottom, their last full sentence on that page, lastly, you'll be focused on gaining leverage through hiring. So he says, first it starts with leads. Then and only then do we shift our focus to listings while continuing or maintaining our focus on leads. After we have those two in place and consistent, then we look at leverage. Now, Jake, what do you see most agents skipping to or wanting to skip to in this process?
Oh, they skip right to hiring. I see a lot of people that are just starting to get into that $2, $3, $4 million, and they go, I need a buyer's agent, right? But they haven't gone through the preceding steps to qualify any of that to that stage, and they're not running the models in a mastery level to be able to do it. And what happens? We watch them crash and burn. That buyer's agent shows up because they're like, oh, I got a bunch of leads. If they come for leads, they will leave for leads.
Wait, say that again. That is something we talk about a lot. Say that again.
Yeah. If people come for leads, they will leave for leads. What I'm referring to here is your value proposition. If your value proposition is leads, you don't actually have one, because they can go buy leads or acquire leads. And if they're good enough at relationship generating, we'll throw that word out there again, they don't need your leads. They can pass you. Yep.
100%. Your value prop has to be bigger than leads or money. Cost is only an issue in the absence of value. So we have to provide more than just the leads or the value. But to Jake's point, most people try to skip past doing the leads and the listings because they don't want to do it. And they think if I just hire someone else, they'll do it for me. And unfortunately, I've watched a lot of agents build a business and implode, and build a bigger business and then implode. And the cycle continues because they're trying to skip steps in the process. You do this like Monopoly. You do not get to pass go. You do not get to collect $200. You have to do the hard work. You have to follow the process if you're wanting to build a solid foundation that you can then build a big business on top of.
There you go.
Now, he goes on to say this, the bottom 173, then going to 174. The right people will document and refine systems and add the proper tools as needed. Here's the deal. If you don't have enough leads, it means you don't have enough business. If you don't have enough business, you don't have enough revenue. If you don't have enough revenue, not only do you not have the money to afford that leverage long-term, you definitely cannot afford the systems that they're going to document, and you can't afford the tools that they're going to say they need. You have to build a business to create the revenue in order to do all of the other things that come after it. And that's why skipping these steps never works. Not once in a while works, never works. I promise you, it never works.
And one thing for if you do get to this stage and you're like, okay, I'm ready to hire, KW has a brilliant tool for this. Do not skip this step. It's called career visioning. You need to do that. You want to watch a business implode really quick? It's the, hey, I met this guy. We had a good time at the, at wherever we were, family reunion. We had a good rapport, and I decided to hire him as a buyer's agent. Do you know anything about him? Nope, but I really like him. That is a recipe for disaster. We just dealt with this with one of my coaching clients because she skipped the career visioning process. Danger, caution, warning, man. Don't do it. It's not worth it to make a bad hire. I can preach on that.
I know. Well, because, it's in the book. So I told you the story once. I'm going to say it again because I love it. Claudia Restrepo, phenomenal, phenomenal human being. She's the one that came to Spokane, Washington, thinking she was coming to Washington, D.C. because she's from Columbia. She didn't speak English. She built her business, and she literally to this day still – so we had her as a guest on one of our United Home Group partner training calls. And even on that call, and still to this day I hear her say all the time, just follow the book. It's in the book. That's what she says every time. But guys, here's the deal. She has a massive business in multiple locations, and she literally gives all of her credit to simply following the model. She didn't get creative. She still today is not getting creative. Her employees bring her things saying, hey, what if we did it this way? And she says, is it in the book? Because if it is, then great. And if it's not, next, go back to work. Follow the model, okay? Now, 174. Last paragraph on the top of that page, this is key. It says, don't forget that the 3 L's are the core of all of these models, all 4 models that we're talking about, and will be responsible for the vast majority of your millionaire results. That's how big of a deal these 3 L's are. So I can't overstate that, yet I want to make sure you really hear me clearly. Like, that's how big of a deal those 3 L's are. Don't miss that. Now, he goes on to talk about quality service. Middle of page 174, he says this. He says they want to know how significant a role quality service plays in becoming a highly successful real estate agent. And he's referring to what other agents ask him regularly. And he answers, he says, quality service will be a critical component of your success. There's no doubt there. And oddly enough, quality service will be the natural byproduct of a business built on documented systems, accountability to standards, and hiring talented people. Now keep reading here. In fact, our experience is that agents who build a team of carefully selected, underline carefully selected, not random, not, hey, I met you in a coffee shop and you're cool, carefully selected, highly trained specialists provide a level of fiduciary service that is consistently and predictably higher than the service provided by a single person. Now, what's one of the number one reasons we hear when people, as an objection when they say, oh, I don't think I'm going to build a team? Well, I want to build a team because my people are loyal to me.
Only me.
My people only want to work with me.
Nope.
And I love you, and that's complete garbage. It's hogwash. It's just not true. What we know is when you build an organization with standards, accountability, documented systems, all the things that we just read about, when you have a business with all of those components in place, that produces as a natural byproduct highly trained sales professionals. And a team of highly trained sales professionals will always outperform and provide a higher level of fiduciary service to a client than a single agent will. Because the single agent, remember, like we talked about in previous videos, the single agent is all of those positions in their business because they don't have that leverage. There's only so many hours in the day. There's only so many of you. The fact of the matter is you actually can provide better service by building a team if and when you follow a model and do it correctly. Now, if you haphazardly walk into this and hire people by meeting them in the line at concerts and coffee shops and grocery stores, you probably aren't going to have great service provided to your clients. However, when you follow the model, you will get a higher level of service provided to your clients every single time, okay?
Which generates our favorite word, referrals.
100%. And all of a sudden now there's another leg or arm of revenue coming into the business consistently. Look at page 175. Top of 175 says this, the first paragraph, the 4 models of the Millionaire Real Estate Agent are the same 4 models we've been discussing. At the millionaire level, the difference is not in the models. You need to keep this in mind. The difference is not in the models. The models don't change, but in the issues and the numbers you will need to fully execute them. So as we're going through this, like we talked about, even if you have no desire to build your business to this millionaire level, look at how these models function more than the numbers themselves. Learn how these numbers work together. Learn how these formulas show you what it is you're looking for. It's an incredibly powerful exercise, and it can absolutely be scaled to whatever you want your business to become, okay?
100%.
Now, 175 in the middle there. Now, this is where I'm telling you, like I told you, you're going to speak the language. Now, you don't have to have ever seen a profit and loss statement before. And maybe you're an accountant or anything in between. Point is, it's still worth going over this. And I mean, look at how much I have highlighted in this section. This section's important because when I'm training people on how to, like we talked about last video, using QuickBooks and getting the chart of accounts to bring into your QuickBooks account so that you're speaking the same language, this is what we're talking about. The QuickBooks chart of accounts, bringing that into your QuickBooks, if you use QuickBooks for your business, which you should, and I get nothing for saying that, but you should because it helps you generate reports and know your numbers at an extremely high level. Bringing that chart of accounts into your QuickBooks, what it does is it makes it speak the language that we're about to go through. So that's why this section's important. So follow here with me on 175. In the middle of 175, he says this. He says, all we've really done is just break the expenses category we presented earlier for the average agent into 2 expenses of the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, cost of sales and operating expense. Now, the reason we did that, we're going to explain here shortly, but the reason this is important is this is a more granular breakdown of what your actual expenses are going to be. It's easy for a lot of single agents to hide a lot of stuff in the expense category of their P&L or the expense category of their business. This is breaking it down even further. And you understand, you don't have to love numbers or love reports, but the more we break these numbers down, the more granular we get them, the more of the story they tell us. And all of a sudden, now the business is communicating with us, telling us exactly what's happening and what's most likely to happen, right? And that's invaluable.
Once you learn to listen to the story and tell the story through the numbers, you are going to begin to love the numbers. I came from I hated numbers in the beginning, drove me nuts, couldn't stand math. High school kid, I'll never use that once I leave school. And I'm a total numbers geek now because the numbers don't lie. The numbers are 100% truth. And when you learn to read them and tell your story and let them tell your story, you're going to love them.
Absolutely. So let's look at those numbers. Bottom of 175, it says the 4 elements of our model are defined as follows. The first is GCI, or gross commission income. Just a few things here because I think most people understand what this is. Gross commission is in GCI is based on assumed. This is why this is important. For all these figures and models, he's going to give you the assumptions they used in making the model so you can adjust those in yours if need be. Based on an assumed 6% total commission with 3% for each side of the sale. So in the model you're going to see, that's the assumption that was made. Further on in that paragraph, for simplicity's sake, we've included all additional transaction fees charged buyers and sellers in the commission rate. That's how they got to that 6%, okay? Now, page 176, cost of sales. And this is, I think most people understand GCI, just like most people can't do math, but they can all do 6 and 3% math, right? So most people understand cost of sales, or excuse me, the GCI component. Cost of sales is where I start to see blank stares and deer in a headlight look. Now, this is really simple. It's just most people have never taken the time to go through it. So let's talk about it. Cost of sales. Here's what he says. Cost of sales, or COS, is related to the amount of money paid to a listing specialist and the commission split paid to a buyer specialist. So your salary for your listing agents and the commission split, the other side of that share with your buyer's agent, those two things are what go into this category, okay? That's how much it costs you each time you make a sale in terms of people leverage, salespeople. Okay, now he keeps going here. Now this is interesting. A talented listing specialist will cost you between $65,000 and $100,000. Now what's interesting is this book was written a while ago. Guess what? This is still pretty darn accurate.
It's pretty close.
We've got listing agents right now. Guess what? This is pretty darn accurate. Now you do with it what you want to, but what I'm telling you is this is a base salary. You're still going to pay them a small percentage of their sales as well on top. But this is a base salary. And what's fascinating to me is what the MREAs who contributed to this book said was their normal, what they were paying, still holds true today, right? So keep that in mind. If you're going to be building a team, you want a good number to put in as a placeholder or kind of to play with, to plan. That probably is pretty accurate to use for your planning purposes. Next sentence. For the buyer side, we assumed a 50-50 split for buyer specialists. Still pretty common, okay? Now, if, the next sentence there, if your value proposition to your staff is such that you can compensate at a lower rate and still recruit and retain talent, you're in a much better position to net a higher income. And some of you are like, duh, but some of you are like, oh, that's amazing. I never thought about that, right? Here's the deal. Cost is only an issue in the absence of value. So if you want to pay out less to your buyer's agents, you better do more and provide more to give them a bigger value proposition. Here's the thing that I know, Jake, and I talk about this all the time because you and I have recruited 4 teams and 2 teams and had teams and all these things. Like what we hear a lot often when we're talking to somebody about joining a team is, oh, well, I don't know. That 50-50 share, like that 50-50 split's pretty tough, man. I don't want to have to give up 50% of my commission. Here's what I know. Jake, if I could tell you that by working with me, you could make X number of thousands of dollars next year, would the split even matter?
No, they don't.
The split doesn't matter. What matters is net income, which we're going to get to. But guys, again, cost is only an issue in the absence of value. So when you're recruiting to your team, if you're building a team, know what your split is. Be very ready to have a conversation as to what the value proposition is and why that is a good value for the expense. And when you do that, you will not have a problem recruiting or retaining. Until you get clarity in your own mind as to what the value proposition is and why that is commensurate with what you're charging that person, you will continually have those problems. So again, it comes down to you, the leader, but get extreme clarity on what is my value proposition, what am I providing, and ultimately, what does this allow this person to net at the end of the year without having any of these overhead or expenses or stressors of having their own team? There's a lot that goes into this, okay? Now, a couple more things here. He goes on to say, cost of sales can also vary widely based on such variables as local market conditions. What else? Average price.
Average price, yep. Support, source of leads, local employment conditions. Yeah, all of those factors, things that are
every single one of them.
Yeah.
Yep, here's what we know. You have to understand what your cost of sales is as the market's changing, as those little things are impacting your business or showing up, then you know what effect that's going to have on your net income. That's his point here. Now, the next one, operating expenses. Now, these are different than cost of sales. Cost of sales, again, is remember the money we pay to our listing specialist and the split we pay to our buyer's agents. Operating expenses are all of the other costs of doing business. All the other costs of doing business, including marketing, rent, salaries, equipment, supplies, advertising. This literally is soup to nuts. Paper clips, office rent. This is the all other expense category, essentially, okay? Now, here's what's interesting, and I want you to underline this next sentence because this is really, for me, something I've come back to a lot in helping agents build their business. Our research shows that as your business grows, this can reasonably be held at or below 30% of gross revenue or GCI. So what he's saying is, how do we know if our business is on track? How do I know if I'm norm or if I'm in norm or if I'm hitting the guidelines or if I'm where I should be, if I'm not spending too much or too little? Red light, green light again. What he's saying is it's studying all the people that contributed to this book, their operating expense was at or below 30% of their total GCI. Guys, it doesn't get much simpler than that to know how is my business doing. Oh, by the way, if I see my expenses are creeping up and they're 40-45%, what does that tell me I need to do, Jake?
I mean, if you're creeping up, you got to cut expenses somewhere. Plain and simple. It's red light, green light. Is this a return on investment I need to keep right now? my expenses are too high. Oh, I forgot about these $19, $12 a month things that are all on my credit card. Kill them. If they're not in with that 30%, that's when you red light, green light it.
100%. And the problem for most agents is they don't ever inspect these numbers. They don't have a clue what percentage their expenses are of their GCI. And they get to the end of the year and they've had a really banner bang up year in production and sales volume, and they're broke as a joke. And it's because they didn't inspect this number. This is a simple thing. Each month, look at your books and say, okay, what percentage are my expenses of my GCI? And if they're 30 or less, cool. Keep doing exactly what you're doing. Keep working. If they're more than 30%, you got to go right back down to the granular level and look at where am I spending money, where am I not getting return, and what am I cutting?
Yep. The market centers run on this too.
Yeah, market centers do this
at our business level. This is, every day as a team leader. Are your expenses 30% or less? You hit 32%, you're having a fun conversation with your OP as to why that is. So it's not just at the agent level. This is bottom to top, like Ben said, soup to nuts, man. This is every piece of KW, top to bottom, runs this way.
And the beauty of it is, guys, you don't have to be an MBA to be able to run an incredibly effective business because of some of these little tips. Because we have little things like knowing 30% is the magic number, right? Now, what you do with it is up to you, but you are now armed with some of these tips and tools that can help you protect your net income. You have to show up every day fiercely fighting to protect your net income, because everything and everyone else around you is going to be fighting to take it. And I'm not saying it's malicious, but if you don't show up fiercely fighting to protect your net income, everyone else will fiercely fight to take it from you. Like that's how big of a deal this is. And that's why these are so important. Now, net income. This is the one where I have dollar signs in my book next to this one. Net income. This is what we pay the bills with. This is what actually matters. This is when we're recruiting somebody to our team. We always want to talk about net income, not gross, because gross doesn't pay your bills. I don't care how much you gross as a single agent. Show me what you netted. Right. Then let's look and see what you could net on my team. Now we're comparing apples to apples. But don't compare what you grossed on as a single agent to what you could net with me. They're two different numbers. And your gross will be out of whack because you're comparing a single agent to a team agent. But ultimately, Jake, isn't what's most important to you how much you net and pay taxes on at the end of the year?
That's the most important number. I mean, the bottom line is the most important number to me and to just dang near any agent that I talk to. I mean, you recruit anybody to a team or to KW for profit share purposes, and what's the bottom line? What can I make? Well, what they're asking you is, what can I net? Everything above that, not as important to them.
100%. Now in 176, in the net income section, right smack dab in the middle of that paragraph, here I highlighted one thing in that section I wanted to go over. He says, bear in mind that net income is always your primary goal. It is natural to have goals in other areas, but here, underline this next part, but always work backward from your net income. If you look at the economic model that I posted in the Facebook group, I gave you guys a couple different options. Mm-hmm. It always starts with the net income, and then it works backwards from there. So you're always asking yourself the question when you're doing your business planning, when you're doing your economic model, how much money do I choose to net? I didn't say how much did you want. I said how much did you choose? How much do you choose to net at the end of this given year, whatever the year is? And then I'm going to work backwards from that because I have the percentages and I have some of the formulas. I can work that equation backwards then to know exactly what those activities must be in order to get me to that desired net income.
For those of you that remember what it was like to have just a normal JOB, when you went out and you did your interview, what was one of the most important questions you asked the person you were getting hired for? How much money am I going to make? Right? That was the important question. Oh, you're going to make $80,000 this year. That was money to you. That was the important one. This is just working backwards for that, to Ben's point. But that was the most important question to you when you went out and had a JOB. Treat it the same way now.
100%. Let's look at page 177, because as usual, I'm going to have to push to get us through some of these pages. And I'm sorry, guys, but you can tell I'm a little passionate about this stuff, but this literally is an integral part of you building a business. You can make money without this section. You cannot build a business without this section. You can make money in real estate. You can fall into a couple deals. You can make money doing it your way. You can't build a business unless you have these formulas in place and you treat it as such. Now, in page 177, under the doing the math section, he says, working backward after adding back in the cost of sales and operating expenses, and they're talking about the MREA model here, you'll need approximately $2.4 million in GCI in order to net $1 million in personal income. Now, here's the deal. Again, remember, if your goal is not to net $1 million this year, that's fine. Put in your own numbers here. But the formula still works. We're just looking at it as an example of wanting to net $1 million. You can swap in your numbers, and it'll work just the same for you at whatever level you choose to have it work. Further down, that next paragraph, there are two primary sources of income driving your GCI, seller listings and buyer sales. Of these two, seller listing income is the most important. You're going to want to underline that. This is also the reason, guys, if you notice in the model, this is the last position you give up as the owner of the team. On the path of the 7 levels, it doesn't go assistant listing agent. It goes assistant buyer agent, and then probably another buyer agent. Listing agent is the last role you give up on the team, and he says that countless times in this book. This is the reason. He just said it. Seller listings provide the greatest opportunity for net income. Why in the world would you take your hands off the wheel of the thing that gives you the highest potential for net income earning?
It's your driver.
This is the last thing you give up. Now, he goes on the next sentence there. Each seller listing properly marketed should generate 1 buyer sold if the leads are properly captured, followed up, and converted. So this might be a good test for you in your business today, and this is not something you have to tell anybody about right now, but I want you to ask yourself the question, look at your last year, look at your past year's business. Did you get 1 buyer per listing taken? What he's saying is when I have the system built, integrated, and operating at a high and consistent level, I should expect, not hope, I should expect to get 1 buyer transaction or 1 buyer working with me off of every listing taken. And if I don't, or if I haven't, then it tells me I need to inspect that. I need to do a little more work there. I need to create better systems around my process for marketing listings and taking them in order to maximize the potential of what I'm getting out of them. Now, look at the bottom page 178. This section without these diagrams could be pretty confusing, and so he did a really good job, or the authors all did a really good job of these figures, and they're basic, but they do help understand what the heck they're talking about. So figure 30, page 178, the basic cash flow of the economic model. Literally, if you're having a hard time following, this shows you exactly what they're doing. They're splitting it 50-50, making that assumption. Your business might be different. Again, in the economic model, you can change those percentages. If your side than listing side, you can choose percentages, and it will tell you exactly still what you need to do. In this assumption, they're splitting that 50-50. Now, page 179, he says figure 31 and figure 32 show the relationship between the average sales price and the number of closed units necessary to reach 2.4 million in GCI. Now, before we go on, because I've got more there. Jake, when we're coaching people, oftentimes agents like to brag about and boast about and get excited about their sales volume, yes?
Yep.
And the one thing we tell them as coaches is don't.
Yep.
So what should we focus on?
Well, we should be focused on GCI is what we should be focused on, and we should be focused on our net. We want to be focused on the bottom line because your volume can lie to you. It sounds cool and sounds impressive, and it looks neat on the whiteboard in the market center of, hey, look, I'm number 2 in total volume. But that's a little bit of a trap because you can look at that and it feels so much bigger. What do? We take our stupid foot off the stupid lead generation gas pedal, right? So don't focus on that. I totally 100% agree with that.
So we want to absolutely focus on that net income. We start there, work it backwards. If you're going to track any metric that's most predictive of your net income, I'm going to encourage you, so would Gary, to track your units, your sales units closed versus your volume. Now here's why. Jake, you and I, if we're selling, which I don't sell, but if we're selling in a market and we're in our market, we have 0 control over sales volume. The reason for that is because sales volume is determined by average sales price, and that's his point on page 179. The sales volume is completely out of our control because that is completely 100% determined by the average price in the market. The one thing you and I can control is how much prospecting activity we do in order to get the closed unit count that we're looking for.
Predicated on units, 100% right.
A business based on units and net income, it doesn't matter whether the market's up or down. And this is the reason, even in the worst of the worst markets in the last 10, 12 years, there were still people up on stage, believe it or not, with Gary, who were making obscene amounts of money, building huge businesses, taking big market share when everyone else was crying in their Cheerios. And the reason is they were focused on the right things and they were consistent in their activities. Now,
100%.
He goes on to say there, as you can see, it's on page 179. As you can see, there's a direct relationship between average sales price and the number of units you'll need to close each year to meet your GCI goals. Page 180, we need to concentrate on key activities that lead to closed sales. That's also a sentence worth underlining, starring, circling, highlighting, whatever you do in your book. We need to concentrate on key activities that lead to closed sales. When we focus on the key activities, everything else falls into place. Until we do, nothing happens. Key activities are what we must focus on. For starters, he says, buyers and sellers must first agree to do business with us. Of course, we get that. And for this, we need their written contractual agreement to do business in the form of a buyer rep agreement and a seller listing agreement. It all starts with activities. We have to be in front of the people and have enough of those conversations to get to enough contracts, to get to enough people under contract, to get to enough closings, to get to our GCI goal. It all comes down to our key activities. What are we focusing on? Again, like he said earlier in the chapter, the MREA focuses first on lead generation and then and only then shifts to the problems of the day. Yet a lot of the agents out there are letting the tail wag the dog. They're letting the problems control their day. They're letting the fires of the day dictate where they go and where they spend, how they spend their time. And it's completely backwards, yet it's very easy to fall into that trap. Now, page 180, he goes on to say, while our economic model ends with net income, it begins with lead generation and buyer and seller appointments. If we need 320 closed units to reach our GCI goal in this example, we'll still need to work backward a bit further. We'll need to know these things. So whatever your numbers are, look at these three things, because he's saying we need to get more granular. We have to go further upstream. We need to know the number of buyer listings and seller listings we need to take in order to actually close that number. Number two, the number of buyer and seller appointments we need to go on in order to take enough of the appointment or the contracts to actually sign enough buyer reps and seller listings. And number three, most importantly, the amount of lead generation activity needed to get to the appointments that turn into the agreements. He's working this upstream, guys. He's going to the one thing that controls all the other things. Excuse me. And if we have enough of that activity upstream, if we're talking to enough people, then everything else automatically falls into place. Now he says further on there, the only way to get at these numbers is to track your lead generation efforts carefully and get a firm grasp of your conversion rates. Now, we're getting close to the end of our time, but I want to give you guys this example. So Jake, if you were sick and I'm a doctor and you came into my practice and you said, man, you know, I really feel like I got the flu. I just have all these symptoms and all the symptoms are completely in line for the flu. And if after hearing I say, okay, and then I put a cast on your leg, did I help you at all with the flu?
No.
Not at all. Guys, here's what we've been told long ago by somebody very, very smart. Prescription without diagnosis is malpractice. I'm going to say it one more time. Prescription without diagnosis is malpractice. What we know is we have to really be clear with what's most important in our business. Where is our opportunity? And the only way you yourself, your accountability partner, or hopefully for you, your coach, the only way that person can actually effectively help you move the needle in your business is if they actually know what the symptoms are, if they actually know what to prescribe. And the way we know what to prescribe is because we track our numbers. Because again, the numbers tell a story. So we're going to track literally how many dials did I make during my lead generation block today? Of those dials, how many conversations did I have? From those conversations, how many appointments did I set? And from those appointments, how many pieces of business did I generate or how many contracts did I sign? Now, what do those numbers tell us in between each of them, Jake? Why is that so important?
That's conversion rate, top to bottom, all day long. It's conversion rate.
And that's the bottom of page 180, guys. Here he goes. Conversion rates may vary depending on a number of factors, including current market conditions, the effectiveness of your presentation, the quality of leads, and the consistency of your follow-up. Here's what we know. Page 181, you've got figure 33. I want you to look at that as we're talking through here. Here's what we know. Conversion rates are everything. And the fastest way to increase your income is to increase your conversion rate if you're doing lead generation activities. It's the number one way to increase your income is to increase your conversion rate. Now, there's lots of ways we do that. And you need to be tracking your numbers because those numbers will tell us exactly where you need to focus your efforts and your energy in order to raise that conversion rate. And it's going to be different for everybody, likely. For some people,
don't we have a tool in KW that we've been been using for a couple years, used it at the market center level, rolled it out at the agent level. It sure seems like there's a simple tool that we have put together for everybody to track this. Could it be the Career Growth Initiative? It could. We should use it.
It absolutely could. And if you're not with KW, use one of these pads right back here. Like, it can be as simple as a notepad. It does not matter. The point is tracking your numbers, getting real clear on what story your business is telling you, because when you do this over time consistently, your business will tell you exactly where you need to focus and grow in, where your flat spot is, where you need to lean into more to get better, to get a higher conversion rate. Now, that being said, here's what I also know. And I teach business planning clinic regularly. I can't even tell you how many times I've taught it. I have no idea. But here's the fun part. The fun part is this. I have some agents that come up to me and they're talking about their conversion rate of listing appointments to listing closings, right? That last conversion rate, that last step between I'm at the kitchen table and a signed agreement and a closing. And they brag because they'll say, oh, I'm 99%. 99% of everybody that I talk to lists with me. And my response is, that's great. And what that tells me is you're not meeting with enough people. What do I mean by that? What do you think, Jake? What do I mean by telling like, you're great, that's awesome, and it tells me essentially you're sandbagging. You're not meeting with enough people. What do I mean by that?
You nailed it. You're sandbagging. If you're saying, and I could easily do it if I wanted to, I could easily be 99, 100%, but that means I went on like 3 listing appointments this month and I took all 3 of them. I could do that, but that means I'm not talking to enough people. And a no on a listing appointment is just a yes at another time.
Absolutely. And what it tells me too is you're probably working with low-hanging fruit, meaning you're working with people that already know, like, and trust you. So you're staying in your comfort zone. You're not being stretched. You're not pushing. You're not talking to enough people. And you're definitely not talking to enough people that you don't know. Okay. Now, with that being said, let's keep going here because we got a couple. On page 182, he talks about some of the top agents we've interviewed reported conversion rates as high as 95%. Now, the reason I highlighted this is because when I told that person, congratulations, you're not talking to enough people, they instantly came back and they said, well, the book says 95%. Right. And the book is referencing people who are millionaire real estate agents. Mm-hmm. Last time I checked, you made 80 grand last year. You're not at this point yet. And that's not a judgment. That's okay. But you can't compare an apple to an orange. It's not the same thing. Now, here, hold on. There's a chat from Charlie.
Yeah, Charlie, that's true, Charlie.
Charlie says, a couple years back at KW Family Reunion, Jeff Glover said if you're converting over 60%, you're not attending enough appointments. Absolutely. Same concept, 100%. Like, don't kid yourself. Don't make yourself feel better about your current reality. And it's easy to want to do that in a business where it can be tough sometimes. But at the same time, you're not going to be able to sustain it or build a big business if you're just doing the low-hanging fruit and staying in your comfort zone. You've got to stretch, you've got to push, and you've got to grow. Now, towards the bottom of 182, right next to that gray call-out box with the quote, the better your conversion rates, the fewer appointments you'll need to schedule each month to reach your goal. Or, an underline or.
Or.
You could view it from the perspective that the higher your conversion rates, the more net income you'll generate from the same number of appointments. I've never been one of the mindset or from the school of saying you should use this as an excuse to do less. No, I want to push the business and do the same number because at some point the market will automatically mean that produces less. Mm-hmm. I'm going to build a business for when it's really good and I'm killing it so that when the market corrects and shifts, which it always does, when the market does that downshift to correct or do whatever it needs to do, I'm still okay. I'm still producing the income that I need to keep my business moving forward.
And what happens if you're building it so awesome when the bottom is in a self-correcting mode that you're building an amazing business and your conversion rates are really good that you're sustaining? When the market shifts up, you're going to take off like a rocket. You're going to be far beyond everybody else. So same deal, go in a different direction. That hockey stick thing Gary talks about all the time. Consistent growth and all of a sudden just launch.
Absolutely. And that's what Gary also talks about in the book Shift. The market share that we take in a downshifted market, we never or rarely give back.
Yep.
So why in the world would we play small when we could build a business that allows us to play big regardless of what the market's doing?
Amen.
Now, the cost or the choice is yours, but please do not let conversion rates become a crutch for you like it does for some people. Don't get drunk on your own success. Don't think you're better than you are. Keep pushing. keep working, and your business will thank you for it with longevity over time. Now, that being said, that is the end of our section today. Next session, session 7, will be the MREA lead generation model, pages 185 to 192. So we're doing the MREA lead generation model, pages 185 to 192. So thank you guys so much for being on the call today. Have a great rest of your week. Make sure to join the Facebook Mastermind group if you're not in there already. A link will be down if you're watching that on YouTube. Please go in and comment, what did you take from today's video? What did you take away? What's the one thing not only did you take away, but you're going to actually work to implement this week when watching this video? Leave us a comment down below. Thanks, guys. Have a great day. We'll talk to you next week.